We will support an international coalition as it takes all necessary measures to enforce the terms of Resolution 1973. As you may know, French planes are already in the skies above Benghazi. Now, America has unique capabilities, and we will bring them to bear to help our European and Canadian allies.
Well, they're driving us through these things.
Yeah.
They're driving us. They're planning them. They're executing them. And it's just like 1984. At one moment, Oceania is our enemy. The next day, they're our friend. The Al-Qaeda of Syria are now our pals, our buddies, now that they're after Assad. But once they get in, then they'll be our enemies again. They'll bring turmoil and chaos. That's really the whole goal in the Middle East, to bring destabilization, to bring chaos into those governments. We don't want a stable government in Iraq. We don't want one in Afghanistan. We don't want them in Syria or Libya. We want all the turmoil, all the chaos, because, the elite, they advance through chaos. They've done it in World War I, World War II.
They did it, as you said, the Jacobins, the Illuminati Revolution is really what that was.
Is it that you're so concerned over the blood that is being shed in Libya when you look the other way, when the Israeli Defense Force was bombing the innocent people of Gaza? Unarmed men, women, and children, but our government looked the other way? You looked the other way when the Israeli Defense Force went into Lebanon? No, you don't want to save the Libyan people. That's your noble motive to hide your wicked agenda.
And for the financial control of America?
They will also put the International Monetary Fund in charge of our finances, and banking in this country will be in the control of 5 major banks. That will help to control the situation and further destabilize the country. That is the aim and object of all of this. Once a nation is destabilized, it's very easy to deal with it and push it into a socialist new world order, a one world government. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to say to you today, the time has come for us to recognize that we are 50 individual nations. We have all the rights of an individual nation. We gave only limited empowerments to the federal government. They have grossly, flagrantly violated the concord that we have with them. Therefore, we, the masters, have the right to go to Washington and tell them, the servants, henceforth, this concordat is severed, unless we understand from today all of these unconstitutional measures will be rolled back and a new system will come into being. The Federal Reserve Bank, that private enterprise bank, will be put out of business. Liberty is based on individual freedom. We are individual people. We are not the mass, so disdainfully referred to by Karl Marx and the socialist writers. We objected to a tax of a penny a pound on tea when King George of the Venetian Party of the North. Now, that's probably the first time you've heard that expression. It took me 5 years of digging in the British Museum in London, which I consider to be the finest repository of knowledge in the world, to come up with that name. Our colonists said, we're not going to pay this penny a pound on tea. Today, we are being driven on our knees by a tyrannical government which is imposing all sorts of taxes upon us, and worse than that, trammeling on and tramping on the Constitution of the United States of America. And if we could rebel against the mighty powers of King George III, the most potent force in the world at that time, then, ladies and gentlemen, it is time that we rebelled against a federal government that is trammeling the Constitution underfoot every day of the week.
Speak out, spread the word, pass the information on, shout and scream, or become enslaved.
You want to tell us what really happened?
I got something to say. And if you ain't gonna do nothing about it, then you're just a bunch of lousy, yellow, stinking cowards!
Charles Robert Darwin was born on February 12, 1809, to a wealthy and respectable family. His unproven evolution theory is still being taught in schools today. This is not only strange because there are many other theories, but because before Darwin's Origin of Species, science and religion existed with some sort of harmony. There was an understanding on the part of the religious community that evolution was discredited by science. My own view of religion is that of Lucretius. I regard it as a disease born of fear and as a source of untold misery to the human race. So Darwinism is used to explain human society's place in a godless universe. But Darwin's theory of evolution is a theory in crisis because of the immense advances made in molecular biology, biochemistry, and genetics over the past 50 years. We now know that there are, in fact, tens of thousands of irreducibly complex systems on the cellular level. Peter Quinn argues that Darwin was not quite so squeaky clean as most like to portray him, especially around the social implications of his theory. Indeed, the whole ugly world of eugenics needs to be seen for what it really is, very much an outgrowth of Darwinian thought. As Quinn notes, Darwin played a prime role in bringing about a fateful confusion between cultural and racial differences, conferring new scientific authority and intellectual legitimacy on theories of human inferiority central to eugenics, the most destructive medical movement in history. Darwin married his first cousin. The couple had 10 children, from which a few died at a very young age, and a few others were unable to have children themselves. A classic case of inbreeding, which reduces enormously the chance of having healthy children that can go to bear healthy children of their own. The royals for many generations have also faced birth defects caused by inbreeding. Quinn also said, Darwin's work is filled with references to the work of those involved in creating a radical new scientific justification for labeling races, classes, and individuals as inferior. His followers were quite happy to run with such ideas, and Darwin would not seem to disapprove. Consider his son. In 1912, in his presidential address to the First International Congress of Eugenics, a landmark gathering in London of racial biologists from Germany, the United States, and other parts of the world, Major Leonard Darwin trumpeted the spread of eugenics and evolution. As described by Nicholas Wright Gilliam in his A Life of Sir Francis Galton, Major Darwin foresaw the day when eugenics would become not only a grail, a substitute for religion, as Galton had hoped, but a paramount duty, whose tenets would presumably become enforceable. The Major repeated his father's admonition that, though the crudest workings of natural selection must be mitigated by the spirit of civilization, society must encourage breeding among the best stock and prevent it among the worst without further delay. But Michael Cremo, a research associate in history and archaeology, has presented evidence debunking Darwin's theory. Michael Cremo has been a member of the World Archaeological Congress since 1993. Over the past 2 centuries, researchers have found bones and artifacts showing that people like ourselves existed on Earth millions of years ago.
Of course, these accounts of extreme human antiquity are something that we don't find just in the ancient Sanskrit writings of India. Practically all the wisdom traditions of the ancient world spoke about this, whether we're talking about the Egyptian civilization or Chinese or even tribal peoples, Australian Aboriginals, Native American peoples. They all pretty much say the same thing, that humans have been around for a long, long time. One of the most interesting of those early cases, going back about 2 billion years, is these round metallic objects that have been found by miners in South Africa. They're made of hematite, which is a naturally occurring type of iron. They're about 1 or 2 inches in diameter. And the really interesting feature of them is the parallel grooves that go around the center of each one of them. I had a meeting with the chief mining engineer of the mine from where these objects come. They come from a mine at a place called Ottosdal in the western Transvaal region, and he showed me a block of mineral with these objects solidly embedded in them, and some of them were partially coming out of the stone, and you could see the grooves going around the exposed surface back into the solid rock. So it's not that these things were carved with these grooves recently. And a few years ago, we had some metallurgists look at them. They said they couldn't explain how they could have formed naturally in the layers of the earth. So I think until somebody comes up with a very good natural explanation of how these things could have formed with the grooves, we've got to consider the possibility that these things were made by someone with human-like intelligence about 2 billion years ago.
The scientific establishment has ignored these remarkable facts because they contradict the dominant view of our origins and antiquity. Cremo's writings and finds challenge us to rethink our understanding of human origins, identity, and destiny. These facts challenge the most fundamental components of the modern scientific worldview and invite us to take a courageous first step towards a new perspective. So, Darwin's theory is just that, a theory. In extreme cases, there can be little doubt of the superiority of one race to another. It seems on the whole fair to regard Negroes as on the average inferior to white men, although for work in the tropics they are indispensable, so that their extermination, apart from the question of humanity, would be highly undesirable. The shocking results of the eugenics program in America alone has included laws against so-called mixed-race marriages in 27 states, human breeding programs, forced sterilization of over 60,000 U.S. citizens, and even euthanasia. Eugenics was even allowed by the Supreme Court, which had once declared slaves to be non-persons and now denies humanity to unborn babies. Ideas and funding from American eugenicists also inspired German eugenics research, which culminated with Joseph Mengele's horrific experiments on inmates at the Nazi extermination camp at Auschwitz. A frustrated artist and bohemian became the Chancellor of Germany in 1933.